and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Greetings, ladies and gentle people. It is I, your host, Mr. Green. Welcome to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. How are you? And thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate you and your time and indulging me as I like to go through week by week the episodes of, generally speaking, Wild Women of Wrestling. Although there are times that we kind of veer off. We talk about some other stuff as it relates to women's wrestling. This is the Women's Pro Wrestling Network, after all. So I do try to keep it contained to that. But more often than not, it is WOW. Excluding the news, views, and update segment. But, generally speaking as well. But that's not going to change, at least not right now. They haven't killed me with the creative that's on WOW as of yet. I'm waiting with bated breath. I'm waiting with bated breath to see these new personas that they have coming into this company. I talked about some of the names a while back and how just awful they were. The one in particular that I'm waiting to see pop up to see how they will make this go is Sprout Greens. Hey, Sprout Greens. That's a name that'll probably go down in infamy. If she gets any sort of TV time or time to be made into a star where people outside of the WOW bubble actually know who she is, that name will go down as one of the worst names in pro wrestling. Not just worst names, worst gimmicks in pro wrestling history. And that just got me right off the mark just even thinking about that thing. Anyhow, as we've gone through the introductions here, I think it's time, because there's not really a lot that's going on in the outside purview of wrestling. So let's get into the news, views, and updates. And speaking of terrible names, I forgot, as I'm recording this, WOW should have finished its live in Las Vegas show about a week ago. And on that show, I don't know why they do this, but they introduced like a couple of names who are making their appearance, their debut on the non-televised event. Well, let me retract that. I cannot say non-televised. WOW is very much out of sequence when they do things like this. So, as I understand, if I remember correctly, this is going to be televised. But my guess, and I'm only going to say my guess, is that this is going to be slotted in between some of these shows at some point, which means whatever happened there probably was shown or presented out of sequence of what we actually have airing on television now. Does that make sense? Anyhow, names like Nikki Nashville. God, sometimes they really, really, really kill me with these gimmicks. I swear that it is such a on the nose name. I guess she has to be from Nashville. But anyhow, we won't go into that. I guess we'll see her when we see her, because this is taped at, like I said, her debut, her appearance took place at their live event in Las Vegas on the 28th of September. So ain't no telling when we're going to see her on TV. But again, my guess, I cannot say this for absolute certain, but my guess is that however that was presented to the live audience, it probably came as out of sequence in terms of production. The live audience there probably wouldn't have known any difference anyway. It's Las Vegas, and 80 to 90% of those people that was walking through there didn't even live in the town. Most of which may not even have known what WOW was until they just happened to walk over. Hey, it's girls wrestling. Let's watch. So. And I did say this before. As much as I might tease them with stuff like that, them going to the Fremont Street Festival, them going there, I have to admit, was a stroke of genius. It's not necessarily original, but it is a stroke of genius. They set up shop for a live taping of their show smack dab in the middle of an event that was going to probably have thousands of people there walking around regardless of what was in that area. The Fremont Street Experience, downtown Las Vegas. Regardless to who was going to be there, who was going to wrestle, what titles was on the line, or for that matter, any event that they stuck in that spot, they were going to have a significant amount of eyes on them. I wish I had an applause button right now. That was a brilliant thing for WOW to do. Because if nothing else, much like the San Diego Comic-Con, much like that, you guarantee yourself hundreds of eyes on your product just because it's there. It's the same concept as, have you gone to a gas station and it has a monitor playing while you pumping the gas? Or have you gone to Walmart and there's like internal programming playing, talking about things that you get while you're in the store, or things that play in a location that you were probably going to be at regardless of whatever was on the screen. It's kind of like that. It is a marketing ploy for Walmart, or like I said, the gas station, because you're a captive audience. When you're in a situation like that, that's why they put that there, because they know that you're not just going to turn around and leave, and you can't turn it off, and you can't flip the channel. You're a captive audience. You can try to ignore it if you're just out and out not interested. Yes, you can do that. You can try to ignore it. You can, put your earbuds in. You can turn away from it. You can sing a song to it, whatever the case may be. But for, I would say, probably the majority, at some point in time, it probably worms its way into your ears. And then you hear it, whatever it happens to be. Because, as stated, you are a captive audience. That's kind of what this is. And, you can add the street festival element to it, where people are just excited. There's lights, there's things going on, there's games and shows and this, that, and the other. So, when you're already in an environment like that, to add something else to that feels like a bonus. You get excited people who probably did not even care about wrestling or had no intentions of seeing wrestling when they were at the Fremont Experience, who stopped and watched it because it was there. And I'm not saying that as any sort of bad thing. I'm just saying that that's likely some people's mindset when they came. And they probably enjoyed it. If it were me, and I hope that they did this, I would have loaded that show up with the best talent that I got. Because very likely somebody's going to leave out there and talk about it. Or they're going to, hey, where can I find this? Or can I see it on TV? Where's this air? Or if they were smart, they had pamphlets or banners or whatever the case may be, a QR code, something to advertise their stuff to those people. Because without me having anything to base this on, I can pretty much guess that there's a significant amount of people that was walking through that street experience who did not know what WOW was. This was WOW's chance. They had a chance, at least for that live crowd, for people who come in all across the country to be in Vegas. Much like I said, it's very much like the San Diego Comic-Con. They were in a location where a lot of people came in, and they had a chance to pretty much give them a sample of their wares for free. Hopefully for them, it meant something. That's the only thing. Hopefully for them, it meant something that, okay, we got some of these people, they saw our show, and maybe they'll leave here and seek this thing out on TV or YouTube or the website or whatever. That would be the goal. And also to get content for television, but that would be the goal. Try to grab more people. So in that regard, I have to give them to it. Bravo. I hope it works out. I do not think that, again, the Nikki Nashvilles, I don't know how well. She might be a phenomenal wrestler in the ring. I don't know. I've never seen her. But if it were me, like I said, I would have loaded it up with the best talent that I got and the most presentable talent that I have. Not talent that's designed for 5-year-olds, but the most presentable talent that I have on this roster. That is who I would be taking there. But regardless of how I would have done it, thumbs up to WOW for having their show at that event. It was a very smart thing. Speaking of WOW, a former member of WOW, not their roster, but commentator and producer, AJ Mendez, known to the vast majority of wrestling fans as AJ Lee, along with Amy Garcia, have written and are presenting a new supernatural horror comic series, Day of the Dead Girl, which is scheduled to hit shelves. When is this? August. Why would I say August? This is a Halloween themed thing. I don't know why that even came out. So let's try it again. October. It will be available October 9th, which means as of me recording this is right around the corner. This is presented to you by Magma Comics. Comics with an X. Comix. We know that AJ Mendez has done very little by the way of pro wrestling over the last 7 years. The only exception to that is WOW. WOW has not really done anything of note with her. It was a largely forgettable experience, and since that experience is over, I think we can call that ultimately a fail for the company in terms of using her as well as they could have. But be that as it may, like I said, she does very little with that. She has resigned herself to television and writing, both novels and comics. This being another, and this with her partner, Garcia. They cut their teeth on comics such as Dungeons and Dragons and Glow. But they have this now coming and available on the October 9th. this will be a new venture for Mendez. I sincerely doubt that we will see her lace up the boots anytime soon. If ever, she's probably very likely, if she's going to do, or if she was going to do it, probably very likely to be WWE. I would hope that at the very least WoW tried. I like to think that they would have had their leader, as Dave McClain likes to call her, Jeannie Buss. I would have liked to think that somebody would say, no, look, you don't understand Jeannie. We need her to get in the ring. Give her whatever she wants. She needs to get into the ring. That's what I would have thought. I mean, whatever she wants within reason, of course. But to have that person in your roster and not be able to use her stature as a means to help leverage that company is just a goddamn crime. Anyhow, I get off track here. I am going to try to read the synopsis of their book, Day of the Dead Girl. And I say try because there's a word here that Brujia. I think that's how it's pronounced. But I want to, if anybody out there is listening and I pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry. That's why I said I'm going to try to get through this. So here we go. This is the synopsis of their upcoming comic. Death is never the end of the story. Coroner Sam Callisto will learn this the hard way when a supernatural serial killer targets her hometown just as she moves back. A skeptical woman of science, Sam butts heads with her supernatural mother, Anna, a leader of a witch coven specializing in brujeria. When the coven's brujas start turning up murdered, Sam and Anna must work together to find the killer and save their town's Day of the Dead festival from turning into an occult bloodbath. As if sharing a bathroom with her mom wasn't hard enough. That is the synopsis of her comic. This, of course, reaches into both of their Mexican heritage. And AJ chose to spotlight their Latino culture. So that is what the comic is based on. And again, if you are looking for it, the title, Day of the Dead Girl, available October 9th from Magma Comics. MAGMACOMIX. I don't know if there's anything else that is really big that's going on. What I was going to say, the restraining order story for a little bit later. NXT has already made its premiere on the CW. And they loaded that show up. We got Belair and Cargill showed their faces there. Of course, they had TNA making their presence known, or at least some of their talent coming through, as they did leading into this whole affair. CM Punk was there. The Miz TV. There's a lot that was going on there. And it was live. I mean, they had started to make that a big deal. And would you believe it? The NXT Women's Championship match. Roxanne Perez and Julia showed off and kicked the show off. And Perez survived it. How about that? Roxanne Perez beat the odds and defeated Julia, although with some help. Defeated Julia to retain her NXT Women's Championship. That young lady is probably going to be a pretty big star going forward. But yes, if you haven't had the opportunity to check out the CW broadcast of NXT, I would say go and check it out. I do believe that it was a nice jump off for their national broadcast show hopefully they will be able to keep that thing going. And they have a significant amount of young ladies there for those of you that listen for women's wrestling, because, again, this is presented by the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. You do have the NXT Women's Champion, the NXT Women's North American Champion, and tag team champions that pop in here and there with Belair and Jade, because they can go wherever they want. So how about that? That'd be something for all of us to look at going forward. Or at least I'll try to keep up with as much as I can. Tensions continue to rise with Jade. I was about to say Jade Cargill. That's not what I meant. Nia Jax and Stratton, the Money in the Bank or Ms. Money in the Bank holder. The tensions continue to rise. They keep teasing Stratton wanting to cash that in, and then as Nia Jax get up and she'll take that look like, what are you doing? Doesn't say that, but it's all in her face. She delivers it well in her face. If you can't say anything nice about her, you can say that. That might be an interesting story. Of course, in the middle of that is Bayley. Their match has been added to Bad Blood, by the way. Nia Jax and Bayley will face off at Bad Blood. Mercedes Moné has credited Charlotte Flair as the strongest woman she's faced. That's not surprising. There was reference to, I think Charlotte Flair may have said it at the time, that Moné was like her Ricky Steamboat, as Ricky Steamboat was to Ric Flair. Mercedes Moné was to Charlotte. Although it wouldn't be, I don't know if that would be a completely, I understand the rivalry part that they talk about. I was like, I don't know if that would be a completely, totally accurate thing, because Steamboat only beat Flair once, but, the business has changed. And finally, I mentioned it a little earlier, unfortunately, we have to go into, stories like this of restraining orders and things of that nature. The former Nikki Garcia, has filed a restraining order, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, Artem Chavinsky. One of those. I am not going to attempt to anymore butcher his name, whether he's in the bad place or not. But according to TMZ, she has filed and been granted a restraining order against him. Apparently, he has allegedly brutalized her. He's been accused of domestic violence. She has filed for divorce against him as well. This is never a good story. It's hard to hear. It's disappointing to hear. It wasn't all that long ago when I was given information pertaining to crew at WOW, and the concerns thereof about someone there who apparently had a history of domestic violence. And I understood both sides of that argument. You can go back and hear it. I understood the desire and the want to be in a comfortable and safe working environment. And also I understand that, sometimes somebody somewhere needs the opportunity to get away from their past and grow. This, unfortunately, does not seem like either of those situations, by all reports that this is presenting. It talks about him being, I guess, short-fused, if you want to say that. Being, I guess, progressively more angry and loud and yelling and snapping at their 4-year-old kid. Being a little rough with him, apparently. There was reports where the police said that, I guess their 4-year-old son, his name Mateo, I believe. And there's reports in there that said that he told the police that daddy hurt my hand. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And it's probably a good thing if that has occurred as reported. It's probably a good thing that she filed to get away from it as soon as she did. I know that she doesn't have much to do with the wrestling business these days, if anything at all. And it's very likely that we will not see her, but she still was part of the wrestling community as some people did not particularly care for her work. But she is a human being, you know, and certainly not deserving of getting hurt. More importantly, about someone that you felt like you loved, you know. So, well wishes to her. Hope it gets better with her and her child and so on. Again, hard to, you know, talk about stuff like that at times, but you do what you gotta. So anyhow, we have gotten through that. I think that's enough of the news, views, and updates portion of the show. So we are now going to take a break, and when we get back, it will be time to go into the review of WOW Women of Wrestling. And we are back. The show of the review this week is WOW episode 303. The title, 10,000 Reasons to Talk. The episode number, 303. The chronological number, episode 107. Air date, September 28th. The first segment of the show opens up with David McClain and Sophia Lopez and security walking out to the ring. The first note that I had watching this is at least this security guy looks like a grown adult and looks like he actually could be security. Last time I saw anybody on this show play security, looked like they just yanked them off a college campus and say, hey kid, did you want to make a quick $50? Put this on. So casting in this particular instance, I will say, you know, thank you, whoever you are that picked the guy, because things like that do matter. They do. I mean, it makes something about the look. While during a recap, during this segment, play some dramatic music. I guess they wanted to add to the atmosphere of what was going on, of the beast getting hurt, and you know, we got to find out and figure out this mystery of who did it. It's an interesting creative choice. I'll just say that. I don't know if I would have incorporated it that way. I'm not mad at the music. I think I'm more kind of thinking about the placement. How can I explain? You know, we know WOW isn't live. And despite the fact that it's not live, it is treated as live. So when we watch the show, we are expected to treat it as such. They treat their product as if it's happening right then. Things being changed. Oh my gosh, this happened. You know, it's not like this took place at a live event and we can edit it out. It's like this is being shown to us, the viewing public, live, right? So being that way, I think because that package just kind of got incorporated into it with the music playing underneath during the live thing, kind of set me in like that felt a little weird. Maybe because it didn't feel like a separate thing. It felt like it was kind of tied into David McClain talking. If it was a video package and we knew it was a video package, I mean it was, but you know, if we saw it as such, I think I would probably view it a little different, but you know, I'm going on too far about that. That's just a vague side note. So anyhow, they come out. We get the video, the little recap of what happens to the Beast, and Dave McClain is there with Sophia Lopez. I guess they found something for her to do. This is exactly what I was, talking about a couple of weeks ago. I said, as a manager, she's got less to do now. Once she went babyface, it nullified what she had to offer. And I love me Sophia Lopez. But, she's not a strong promo. So that's off the table. She is a good presence, but she can't do anything objectively as a manager. She can't use the briefcase anymore. I guess theoretically she could fight with a Lana Star or Dante or something like that, but as a babyface, they don't really tend to do that. So yeah, I mean, it took a lot of her tools away. So I guess this is the compromise. She gets to do something else, which really, I don't know if it was even a necessity. But she comes out, she has the briefcase, and Dave McClain goes into, for lack of a better term, wanted to solve the mystery of who did this to the Beast. So as a last resort, more or less, like, we're offering $10,000. Well, first let me back it up, because he presents this like Sophia Lopez had to be the one to get this money, which it's nice that they gave her something to do, but again, I don't know why she would have had to do it. He could have gone to the bank himself and like, hey, I need to withdraw this money, which he would have had to do anyway. So anyhow, she says she has it, and he essentially tells the people that we didn't want to do this, but we're offering $10,000 to information on what happened to the Beast. It's talked about like this, the last resort. I mean, and I guess it would have to be. Outside of calling the police, starting an internal investigation, asking somebody in security, asking somebody in the locker room, talking to Abilene Maverick, talking to Jessie Jones, checking security footage, talking to the people in the front row, asking anybody around there, is there any missing bottles of liquor that's been blasted over somebody's head? That's just stuff that just came off the fly. I was like, this is the last resort. I just go immediately to $10. Let me offer up some money. Not a suspension to anybody. Like, look, I don't know what you had to do with this, but you're not stepping foot in this building again until I get some answers. I'll send you your check. Goodbye. Nothing. Just right into that. Right into, well, we don't have any choice. $10,000. I mean, we used the security footage around it last time when it was at the Belasco, but I guess this television studio doesn't have that. So yeah, I mean, again, that's their universe. So $10,000 is now the reward for finding information on who attacked the Beast and I guess why. And I wrote down, which happens to be the amount of money the mother truckers need. Go figure. I also wrote this gave Babyface Sophia something to do, but what she really needed, and just talked about that. And as much as I like her, no, it didn't, wasn't needed in this particular thing. Could have been anybody. As this goes on, or at least goes to the next segment, while advertises the title match, the main event. My big takeaway from this particular segment is that why was this the only option? There was nothing else he could do. In fact, I'm not even sure if they did anything. I still operate under the rule of, if they didn't do it on their television, or if it wasn't acknowledged on their television, at the very least, did it happen? You know, this was like, well, we got no choice. We just, I got to put out a reward so people can murder each other over this 10 grand to try to give me an answer. And would that really be a sufficient answer? You know? Maybe I apply too much logic to this. I guess so. I suppose. The next segment is Jessie Jones and Abilene Maverick. They have an encounter backstage. This seems to be driving tension. It doesn't align with where they've been. That's the only issue that I had with them. I mean, because it's actually played very well. I don't personally have any problems with, especially not Jessie Jones. She is not an actress by trade, and maybe she wouldn't be able to play anything other than Jessie Jones, but she does exceptionally well in front of that camera. She works well in the ring, works well on the mic, works well in the backstage segments. I would easily put her as, one of the MVPs of that company. Abilene Maverick, former NWA women's champion, which is something that cannot be referenced on WoW. I will say it here. So there's talent, or at least the potential of. I'm sure she got it when she was probably nowhere near where she would have liked to have been ring-wise. She was Barbie Hayden at that time. But I'm sure somebody saw that, there was something there. And she certainly does well as the VIP. She's good in that she is purposely annoying. And I don't mean that in like, I can't, I got to turn the channel, because it's just like she speaks in a very annoying tone, and it's like you wish somebody would smack her just to shut her up. It's the right kind of heat that you would want for your heel to start to have. So the two of them doing this is fine. It was my only comment that I wrote in the notes. Like, this does seem like it doesn't align with where they were at before. They seemed perfectly fine with each other. There was no real hint of any sort of problem, much less that one would complicate and or get in the way of the other. There was no sign of that. But then we come to this season, and well, let's start with the last episode of the last season, I think. Right then and there, even then, when Jessie Jones is getting her title shot and the Beast is hitting the head with the bottle, and Abilene Maverick comes out, she gets on the microphone and says what she says. Yet another reason why I'm like, Dave McClain, why don't you start with talking with her? Last resort. Anyhow. So even at that point, they seemed fine with each other. Now, that doesn't mean that there couldn't have been something off camera. We don't know. I'll give it that. But I'm just saying, they on camera to the viewing audience seem fine together. By the time they come back, now we got this play of tension. And it wasn't like it built to that. It's not like they suddenly came to realize like, oh, well, I want the championship. Well, I want the championship. Well, only one of us can have it. And then there's tension being built up from there. It just kind of came. It just seemed to have started. Like, I'm getting my title shot, so you just hobble along. I was like, where did that tension come from? It's not out and out anger or hate, but it just seemed out of, somewhat out of the blue. this, other than it not aligning with it where they've been, in my opinion, it's fine. No real problem with that. Maverick wants to address McLean's announcement within seconds. He comes out about the 10 grand, and then this happens. So I mean, again, we got to give some concessions to the show, how it's edited, but I just talked about it's presented as if this is taking place live. It seems slightly implausible that she would have gotten there that fast and the camera would just happen to be set up there at that point when she discovers this thing about, the beast and the reward and all that stuff. But we'll leave that alone. It can exist in their universe. The next segment is a Siren promo. I more or less expect the delivery to always be good. Nina Monet has always been good on the microphone. So I expect nothing less of her in the persona of Siren. The only thing that made me, I was going to say not like the segment. That's not what I mean. The segment is fine. The only thing I felt about the segment is I didn't necessarily know what this was supposed to land, other than it was a promo against their upcoming opponents. And that was fine. But at times, the Siren thing seems a bit elaborate, especially when I know that she can deliver that without having to be in front of tarot cards and a skull and who knows what. Every once in a while, it'd probably be nice if it changed up. I get why they do it. I understand. She's the voodoo queen or the voodoo doll on their show. She's the voodoo doll, and this is her gimmick. So I'm sure they want to play it up as much as they can. It just, when it's there, it seems at points to go a long way to make it. Does that makes sense? When she's on the microphone in front of the people, it's almost directly to the point. One of my favorite promos that she did on that show was when she addressed Holiday, when she got in the ring and talked about how you betrayed your coven. Delivered with conviction and direct, right to the point. Here, it's well performed, but it does take a little, like it's going around your back of your head to scratch your elbow. It's a long way going and a difficult route to take. So anyhow, it was fine. It was the lead in for the next segment, which was the first match of the show, Chainsaw and Siren with Angelica Dante against the All-American Girls. The first thought I had when they came out was that this match could use a heel announcer. The reason that I said it could use a heel announcer is because it would have been nice for somebody to point out the fact that these two unnecessarily gave up their title shot for two people who lost and ruined their own title shot, which can only show the stupidity of the All-American Girls to have gave up a title shot in the first place. Now they got to wait because Miami Sweet Heat is under no obligation to get them a title shot. They had it and they gave it up. So, all right, sayonara, bye-bye. And the only persons that were willing to get them a title shot were the ones that lost, the mother truckers. I would have loved to have some heel commentator be able to sit there and point out the other side of that coin. the other side of this whole scenario, that these two morons gave up their own title shot. Now look at them, back of the line, because they didn't even bother to take the opportunity that was right in front of their face because somebody gave you a sob story. It's perfect for a heel announcer. Perfect material. But that didn't happen. So, what actually happened is the commentators start explaining why the All-American girls gave up their title shot to, I guess, the babyface team. As they're coming out, this is one point I wish that they hadn't scanned the crowd, because I thought that, the teams deserved more than what this particular shot gave. The shot and it only caught my attention because they went to it. But there was just some genuinely uninterested people in that camera shot. I was like, oh, really? Of all the things, you ain't got no other B-roll or some excited people you can stick in that. You just leave these people who clearly don't give a crap what's going on camera. Well, getting into the match, let's go into that. I do like that Chainsaw has, I can't say been fully rehabilitated, because there was a point in time in the previous season where she was just taking some losses, and unnecessarily, and not looking like the force that she should have been. I maintain she should have been a bigger force, very rarely losing, or the circumstances by which she lost were questionable, at least until she got to where she was at the Beast. But they rushed her to the Beast, so they kind of ruined a little bit of what they had. But in this instance, the little nuance that I like here is that it's Siren kind of walking Chainsaw around. If you notice, when they come in, she's got her backed up in the corner, almost like holding her back. And when she's up, Chainsaw does look like she's a little unhinged, and Siren's like, oh, calm, is treating her like her wild animal. Santana Garrett shows it's not fear, not comical fear. Like when the Mother Truckers was in there, their fear was like comical. Santana Garrett here is like concern. You can see the concern on her face. So it's not out and out like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're in here with these crazy people. It's just small things, just enough to let you know that I know what I'm in here with, and I don't really want to have to deal with these crazy people, or maybe they look a little strange to me. I like little things like that. And for the most part, this seems like just walking into it would have been a very competent match. Nina Monet is good. Siren, we'll go. Siren is good. Garrett is good. Chainsaw says she can get away with not having a really polished repertoire because of her persona. She's going to want to get better, but, because of who she is, she can get by. And Americana, as much as I give her, crap about her personality or lack thereof, in the ring, she can do things. She didn't sell well last season. Hopefully this one was a little better. And actually it was. So, and she's certainly not the worst of them. I don't know if that sounds like a compliment or not. But no, she's certainly not the worst of people who just went through Wild's training like, all right, it's off to TV land we go. She does look good. She's got a good physique. She's got good stature. She can deliver the moves well. I just think that she needs to work on how she presents and her in-ring psyche, I guess. for lack of a better term, then I think she could be fine at it. But anyhow, off to the match itself. It started off with Garrett and Monet. They had a short exchange before we got Americana into the ring. And it was, Monet was dealing with I don't want to say a wrestling match, but she was easily the wrestler of the two. So you did get a little bit of exchange between, Monet and Americana and Monet and Garrett. Not so much the thing with a Chainsaw. Chainsaw did try to come in at some point to save her partner, but she wound up nailing her partner instead, which then gives reason for the All-American girls to defend themselves and then attack. I don't want to say they just attacked. So they catch her, they boot her into the corner, and then Americana does her handspring elbow, hits Chainsaw. Santana Garrett looks to do the same thing. She does a handspring elbow and hits Chainsaw, but Chainsaw catches her. I am starting to like that spot by Chainsaw. I wish he was doing this sooner. The persona of Chainsaw at this point exceeds her necessity to be polished. And I don't know why that particular little thing it doesn't tickle me, but I just enjoy it. But it feels like it makes her a monster again. It's not that she couldn't have gotten hit. They put her, they gave her the double team and put her in the corner. Americana got her handspring elbow in, and then we tried again, but the third time fails. It's like Americana's elbow had impact, but it didn't have effect. You look at her face when she takes it. It's like a brief moment of pain and then anger. And almost like she's yelling at Americana when she's leaving the ring and then she's waiting on Garrett. I really thought that she did a fine job. Whoever this, I never looked at her actual name, but whoever she is, I really dug that little moment. So she is being presented again as kind of the force here, even though she lost that. I hope that she maintains it. I really do. I hope if they're going to go at her, I hope that she stays this way until it's something significant that makes her lose it. A significant loss where the monster goes down and there's something big that can be gained from it. But Chainsaw takes Garrett into the corner and then tags out to Monet. Monet does her thing, but then it's Chainsaw again, and she starts to work like she is somewhat uncontrollable. The downside of the match happened pretty much after that when Dante came across and used her fan as a weapon. Now, I have nothing against Dante because she did something good at the end of this, so I'm not mad at her. I just wish she would have done something different other than paintbrush Garrett with the fan, because it made Garrett have to sell it. I don't know. I mean, it could have just been that the manager wants to embarrass rather than hurt, but it didn't present that way because of how Garrett sold it to me. So the only thing I could suggest, if you're going to have a fan as your gimmick, fold it up first into the stiff all wood version of it and look like you're trying to jab him in the throat, or something like that. I know visually speaking, it probably is nicer to see the fan fully extended, but it does ruin some credibility. So, but again, that just is one little spot there, and the only reason it bothered me is because it looked like it hurt Garrett. Like she gets hit twice, and then she is dazed when she turns around and sees Chainsaw. And then Chainsaw grabs her by the throat and then walks her into the corner. She played a monster role well here. I would also hit the applause button for her. I don't know if I've given her praise before now, but today I give her praise because I expect Garrett and I expect Siren to do well. I even expect athleticism off of Americana. And I know what I'm getting out of Chainsaw in most cases. But I think at this particular match, I just noticed those little things that she was doing. And it became very impressive to me. So anyhow, at this point in the match, I keep saying it. Siren is in the ring. Siren, the voodoo doll, is in the ring. Now, Dave McClain kept calling her voodoo opposed to calling her Siren. But I can't say anything because I keep calling her an indie name, so, I'm probably pretty much in the same boat. But she was in the ring and trying to hold back Garrett. Garrett was fighting to get the tag. She finally makes it after kicking Siren off. Gets the hot tag off to Americana, which I'm glad that they did that thing opposed to the simultaneous tags on the other side because I got so sick of that just with wrestling all across the industry. Americana does well here. She gets the hot tag. She runs across, nails Siren. Then she runs and hits Chainsaw. And I like this spot too. She ducked Monet. Ducked Siren. Gives a forearm to Chainsaw. Immediately turns around and gets a clothesline on Siren. But at the same time, you got Chainsaw out there looking just pissed that she even bothered to hit her. Chef's kiss. She is being the monster that she should have been. That she started off with, but and I guess their creative wisdom decided that, they wanted to have her chopped down already. But, so Americana gets Siren. She nails her in the corner, goes for the pin. Chainsaw comes in for the save. Pretty much beats up on Americana at that point. This is when Dante runs around the ring and she yanks Santana Garrett off so that she cannot tag out, which is why I said Dante does something good later. She does the right thing as a manager. I got to help. Or at least I got to present an environment that Chainsaw will not be disturbed. Because Chainsaw didn't need the help at this point, clearly. So Garrett is down because of Dante. Now, the one thing that I can't say it hurt the match, but it took a little bit of something away, and it wasn't their fault. It was the production. The camera shot was because what I think happened was Chainsaw dragged Siren to her corner to be able to tag her. But we can't see that because they got close-ups on Americana, and you saw a little bit of it, but I can't say it for certain. There is a shot where you can see Siren's foot, and then Chainsaw walking into the shot. So again, I could kind of maybe see it, but I can't tell. So again, nothing that they did, not their fault. They're not in charge of production. But now Siren is out. Chainsaw's in as the legal person. Garrett is down because Dante got her and then pretty much distracted her. Americana's looking for the tag. She doesn't see Chainsaw coming up behind her. Chainsaw catches her by the throat the second that Americana turns around. And give Americana credit. She might not have sold well facially. I said that is very possible. But they also got away from the close-up and got a wide shot. And it was better for two reasons. The first one being what I just said. We don't know if there's been times where she doesn't sell it well in the face, and we won't know because they got away from that. So that's the first thing that was good. The second one is that it's a more impressive shot. It's an impressive shot to see how high and how hard Chainsaw brings up for that choke slam. And Americana sold it great. She sold it like a champ. She got that thing up and came down, and she just was out cold. It is the best thing that I can say of her, right? She sold that brilliantly. So bravo to her. The next segment, Wow's cameras catch Samantha Smart talking to the classmaster about who knows what. Is something along the lines of, I can't believe that they, this worked out this way, and I'm going to use this to reroute your trajectory. Now, of course, this is verbatim. I'm just, summarizing. And as they're doing this, now, this is why I said, wow, I'm willing to let it slide in occasions. But there are times when you look at wow, and it's like, all right, is the camera supposed to be here or is it not? Because they seem to flip back and forth between the two. This is one of those occasions where the camera is obvious because she addresses the camera. So they're talking with the door wide open for whatever reasons about this secret plan that she didn't want anybody else to hear. But the cameraman comes on like, oh, excuse you, this is a private conversation. Get them out of here. Well, they weren't actually in the room. They were standing at the door. And I assumed that if you didn't want it heard, you would close the door because you're a smart person. Or maybe not. So, I mean, look, we know what this segment was here for. It's not that the segment was bad, but I have no idea where this is going. As of right now, this is one of those things that, all right, maybe this will play itself out, and I have my fingers crossed that it will play out to something where we can look at it weeks from now and be like, okay, now that makes sense. I only concerned that WoW has not been good with that in prior efforts. Sometimes those things have no follow-up at all. It's just something that we put there because somebody thought it was cute or whatever the case may be. So I can't really judge this because I don't know what they're trying to do with this. And I have no idea where it's supposed to go because the classmaster doesn't really have any angle that she's involved in per se. Neither does Samantha Smart. So, and she's talking about championships. The last time we saw her in the ring, the promo was about essentially getting the classmaster back to a championship, which as a heel manager, perfectly fine. I get it. I still think her client, the classmaster, should have won more in order to make that feel more valid, but, that's neither here nor there now. So, as stated, this is short. Don't know where it's going. It's only about 30 seconds long. You can catch it on YouTube. I'm not going to say probably because it's there. But I don't know where this is heading to or where it's coming from. So we're just going to stay tuned and then we'll see how this unfolds. I just wrote down in this particular instance, this segment served no purpose today. We'll see if it does something tomorrow, so to speak. Next segment is the next match is Genesis versus Foxxy Fierce. So our new tag team of the Fierce Sisters follow up their big win and getting beaten up by 5 different people by having 2 individual singles matches week after week. And much like last time, Genesis comes out. She's on her own. And then Foxxy Fierce comes out with her sister Roxxy. And Roxxy wanders off to the commentating booth just like her sister did the week prior, which I don't understand. Just because you are in a tag team does not require you to come out there and do commentary just because. And maybe they view that as helping the character out, or you get to do some other stuff. People can hear you. But everybody didn't need to be on commentary, and I would say this is one of those situations. Now, I want to clarify to say I'm not saying that Roxxy sounded bad or that she did bad, but almost nothing they talked about was relative to the moment. It could have been relative to the match, but it wasn't relative to the moment. Like, very little of what they were doing sounded like they had any concerns about Foxxy in that ring at all. You know, if you've ever coached, let's say, or, you know, been on the sidelines for your kids, your brother, your sister, something, generally speaking, we're a little bit more excited than that. Because we want to see the person that we're either teaching, mentoring, our family, we want to see them win. But here, I never got the feeling that it was important. They talked about it, but I never got the feeling that it's important. It was just kind of like random banter between David McLean and Roxxy. Meanwhile, Nigel's trying to call a match there. So I didn't get the idea there because we already had this happen once, and it didn't make any sense the last time when Roxxy comes out to face the Classmaster and Samantha Smart, who we just talked about, and then Foxxy just goes away and leaves her sister to have to deal with the cheating. Even though anybody that's watched this show or wrestling in general would know that the cheating's coming and you can see it a mile away. This is, I guess, you know, you can make an argument that this one makes more sense because it's Genesis with no one. And so it may have been, we can fluff out the story in our heads and say, all right, well, she wanted to make it fair and then went out there and sat with her. But I still do not agree that everybody needs to go to the commentating booth. Like I said, it didn't feel like they were even in tune to the match. It's just, hey, how you doing? And let's not start with, for whatever reasons, it sounded like David McLean began to drift off and to try and sound like a Southern Baptist preacher or something. I mean, he literally at some point there's like, hey, can you give me an amen? All right, girl. I'm like, oh man. I mean, that was a cringy moment for me that I had to sit there and listen to that. And it only made me double down on this is another one of those spots where you need a heel commentator. And I've never endorsed a heel commentator as much as I did when I started watching this show. Because they are too sugary. They are too flowery. They're too over the top. And it's almost like there's nothing to balance that out. I wouldn't say it with most other places because most other places tend to largely treat their product like it's real opposed to this is a fun time, Nigel. You know, that. It doesn't quite come off like that. But here, and David McLean has his moments where he can turn on the serious voice and he can do the commentating. I might not be his biggest fan of it, but I can give credit where it's due. Nigel is a better commentator in this equation. But he gets drugged down by David McLean by having to do David McLean's shtick. And he's managed to keep himself afloat through a lot of it. But there are times, like I think it was just last week when I said that, certainly within this new season, where David McLean's like, hey, we'll be back with Wow, Women Of, and he gets Nigel to join in with him. You know, it's those moments I'm like, all right, he's pulling Nigel down. But having a heel commentator for them in this instance when they are doing things like they're doing will help balance this whole feel out by being able to call out the things that somebody else out there in the world might be thinking. Now, they may have to give it a heel spin, but still they could be thinking, hey, why are you in here? You should be out there by the ringside with your sister watching her back, sitting here yammering with David McLean trying to earn points with your boss. Or something, just anything to help bring this situation, some balance. Because it just did not. When he goes off and, like I said, his little brief imitation of the Southern Baptist preacher. I don't know what can make that better other than that. The heel commentator, I mean. There is also a point when Genesis comes out and the commentating team is talking about, specifically Dave McClain's talking about, Genesis, did she won, the right to be the leader of Exile, but she's the last member there. I was like, then she's not a member of anything. It sounded like just a stupid statement. Like, if you've dismantled the team, then you're not a member of a team. You're just you. Like, what kind of sense does that make, McClain? Give me a break. There is no Exile. I can't be a member of a team that doesn't exist. But, things like that get to slide on the air because, no one's there to call it out. So anyhow, they have this match, and there's a couple of things outside of the match. Notice everything that I've talked about has been largely outside of this match. Very little in the match that I have a problem with, quite honestly. I know I haven't been the biggest cheerleader for Foxxy Fierce, but I cannot honestly say that she did bad here. She certainly was nothing like what her sister did last week. Between the two of them, she's hard to say because I'm thinking about the numbers. Maybe what has she got? Maybe 25, 30 matches over 3 years. As difficult as it is for me to say, she's the experienced one of the two. So you should expect a better match. So, yeah, I had really not much to say about the match in and of itself, but that's been a common theme, it seems like, this episode is the things around the match, the setup, the angle, the presentation of personality or the tone. It's been those things. The in-ring work this episode largely has been pretty good. Overall enjoyable. But getting back to this, after he talks about her being the leader of a team that doesn't exist, he has points where he's talking about Genesis and somewhat of her perseverance. Now, we can't take away these things if they are legitimate. He talks about her upbringing and how she persevered and became where she is today, and stuff like that. And that's fine. Nothing with that. But again, this is where I say you would probably need someone, either a nonpartisan, non-biased, straight down the middle commentator to say that. And David McClain isn't that. Let's just call it for what it is. He's not there to be non-biased. He leans largely to baby faces, even though for whatever reasons he'll try to prop up the heels also. But he doesn't come off as non-biased because it's always kind of in a cheerleading mode. If you don't believe it, look no further than the Trios Championship match when the heels pinned the baby faces. He's like, yes! So that's why I say he in theory, on paper, he is non-biased, but he's not that in execution. Having a non-biased person there to say these things for him or Nigel would work better, in my opinion. Also, another example of the heel commentator having a place there. The heel commentator can cheerlead for the heels. The heel commentator can praise and talk about the things that she overcame, and it can all be true. But if he or she wants to pull whatever legitimacy that he's applied to who he's talking about, he can always crank it up a notch, overblow it. That's why she was able to beat the two of them without any hassle of breaking a sweat or whatever, because she persevered and blah, 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 blah. Truth up until a point, then you start leaning off into just the unabashed praise that heels had amongst each other. But I question why he would do that. Even in that scenario, they don't have the heel commentator and whatnot. Nigel probably would be a better choice. Yeah, I mean, assuming that this is stuff that was thought out ahead of time, they may be calling it as they see it. But if it was the choice between the two, I think he would be able to get this across in a more matter-of-fact form than Dave McClain is typically used to doing or known for doing. So he asked something stupid like, hey, she just had her head pushed into the wild purple mat. Did you feel it? The match again, fine. I actually enjoyed the match at points. The commentating that was around this match just left me bumfuzzled at times. I was like, what kind of stupid ass question is that? First off, that myth is applied to twins, you nitwit. Secondly, if she felt it, I'm pretty sure you're sitting 2 feet in front of her. If she felt it, I'm pretty sure you know. Anyhow, it was only those things. So, if you want to enjoy the match on the merit of the match alone, just watch it without the commentary. It does a better job between the two of them to not have that kind of yammering over top of what they're doing to make the match look good. Now, as far as the match itself, let's just briefly go through that. One thing I will say and repeat about Foxxy, I know I have not really given a heaping load of praise onto her because to my view, she's always been kind of presented less than, and I didn't get on her for that because somebody has to do that. Somebody had to be in a position of putting the other people over. And she did a fine job at doing that. She came back from being tossed through a wall and apparently just wanted to be a more competitive wrestler. So she's done that with her sister. And aside from, me having a hard time believing her when she went up against Chainsaw, where last time we saw her, she was just absolutely terrified. This time she was just a badass. Outside of that, there was no real issue. And here, it seemed like Genesis and Fierce had reasonable chemistry together. Now, I don't know if they worked this out. I would assume so, because according to, at least on The Wrestler, The Wrestlers, the Netflix docuseries, when they had that little moment when they did talk about WoW, that's what the gentleman said is like, well, they take about a week to work out their match. He's like, that's why I couldn't go down there. But anyway, as a trainer or something like that. But even if they did work out the match, they looked good in the ring together. I have to give credit where it's due. They seemed fine. Like I said, if we're looking at the difference between Foxxy and her sister last week, you got a lot less, if any, botches in the ring out of Foxxy opposed to what her sister did. But I also feel like she was had the wrong opponent that day, but that's neither here nor there. There was a point in the match where we get the heat on Foxxy. Once Genesis turns this around, we notice that she no longer has Exile on her outfit. Outfit is basically the same, but she has Genesis now opposed to the team of Exile. She nails some nice moves in the ring, does Genesis. She gets to show a little bit of aggression, show some speed. There's a point where Foxxy charges her into the turnbuckle. She slips out, kind of goes over the top of her, and then catches Fierce. Genesis at one point gets to strap Foxxy down with her own arms, and that brings her up until she can do a backstabber. And it was nicely executed. Also, Foxxy had her moments in there too. The little leg sweep thing that Foxxy did in the corner when Genesis charges into her and she slips through the ropes this time. And then she kind of comes in and does a double-legged sweep of Genesis' legs from the outside in and came back with a nice pump kick. So there was good work here. I also like the finish, but I feel like it just happened where Foxxy charges in. She does her rear end in the corner. She catches her once. She catches her twice. Third time she comes in, she does a drop kick. Then she shoots Genesis off the ropes. And Genesis, seeing the rear end coming this time, counters it. She catches her with her waist lock and tosses her. Well, not tosses, but hooks her into the full Nelson. We just saw essentially that same counter in the first match. The counter isn't bad. I just, I don't know if we need to see multiple variations of it on one episode. I probably would have preferred her have some sort of different counter than that just because we saw it. But that's a minor thing. That's a really minor thing. And I can admit that that's not a game breaker for the episode. So, But anyhow, Genesis catches Foxxy with the coming out of the rear into a waist lock, hooks her into the full Nelson, walks to a corner, plants her face into the turnbuckle a couple of times, then brings out and does a full Nelson face buster. Good grief, let me get it right. So that was it. She's got her victory. Now, after this, Genesis cuts a promo. And I forgot to say Roxxy was, of course, talking to Dave McClain throughout this whole thing and said something to the effect of, yeah, Genesis, you come this way. I got something for her, or, something like that. And it just, nothing there just sounded serious at all. It just didn't. That is the biggest takeaway I have of the match, is that the commentary, specifically between Roxxy and David McClain, removed all tension from the match itself. It probably was fine for the people that were watching it live. Because, again, the match itself, good. But hearing them talk over that match, that took us all, because it just, there was never a feeling that there's any sort of threat to one person or the other. At least not in my mind. It just was. That's all I can say. It was just a match. I used the stunt show analogy before, where you like going to see the stunt shows at a Six Flags or Disney or something like that, Universal. And those things are dangerous for them. Something could actually go wrong. But we never look at it that way. We're not emotionally invested in it that way. It's just, wow, look at that guy swing on the rope. He just ran through the fire. Woo! It's just that. We don't really view them as being in sort of danger. We're not emotionally invested in them. We just enjoy seeing what they do. And this is one of those cases of we enjoy seeing what they do. Not really emotionally invested in the match per se. There's nothing happening here. It's a cold match. Now, I do like that Genesis got the microphone and she was getting ready to cut the promo. And then she essentially does the Genesis promo. Now, that's the only downside. Her promo hasn't really changed. I'm Genesis. I'm going to show everybody I'm going to the top and I can do it by myself and, stuff, that kind of same song and dance. But the one point that she did stress is that there will be no more losses. No more losses. I can go with it if they decide that she's going to do an undefeated streak run. That could be interesting. They started it with Gambino, and that had to change because from what I understood, she got hurt. So maybe it would be a good thing for her. Is one thing I can say about WoW in this instance, having been on 107 episodes as of this, the characters, the personas, the wrestlers, whatever you want to call them, in the previous incarnations of WoW never had the opportunity to evolve. They never had the opportunity to evolve. This group of ladies on the roster at least had the opportunity. Now, whether they will or not, that's a different issue, but at least they'd have the opportunity to evolve. Genesis has gone from, being just another member of to fighting for a top spot to, I guess, immediately relinquishing a top spot once she's got it to being looked at as more or less a team player to a singles persona. And now she's heading into, allegedly, or assumably, a winning streak or potential winning streak. So I'm good with that. I just hope it's not just talk. I said all of that to say that. I hope that it's not just talk. Otherwise, it's just a rinse and repeat promo. So we will stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see her change or climb the mountain or fall back down. Next segment, promos the title main event. It's Jessie Jones versus the Beast. Or at least so they would like you to think. We'll get there. They also previewed, Lana Star and the Fabulous Four in this promo. Next segment, the Fab Four come out the ringside to cut their promo. And I wrote Lana Star's off with a pretty good promo. And I put a note by that. It's like, I've grown to like her promos. And I still cannot say whether it's memorized and written out or written out memorized or she's doing it off the cuff. But that's another case of somebody I thought has grown. She's been in that company in some form or another since 2001. In some form or another, she's been with this company since then. And hadn't really changed anything in either of the incarnations of it. I never thought that she was a great wrestler. She's serviceable at best. But this version of her may be the version that she needed. She can play the personality. She can be over the top. She can embody Lana Star the way that she has done without having to go through all the physicality, but she can do some of the physicality required for a manager. And she has something more or less to sink her teeth into. She has grown, I think, as a managing personality. The only thing that I can add to that is, if she's learning new stuff or if she's dove into the persona a little harder or whatever the case may be, I say great. Watch some other managers out there in history. See if you can learn a couple of other, managerial spots. But other than that, hey, hats off to you. So the mother truckers come out again. And, this is following the incident that they had the previous episode. That being that they lost. Now, this is the most produced angle that WoW has going for it right now. They haven't seemed to have missed a week as related to the mother truckers. Or this, the Fabulous Four, just the angles in general. So they come out as they're talking, doing their old country shtick, and Dave McClain's making fun of them in the background. Some like, ain't got it. Isn't that double negative, Nigel? So this is where they come out begging again. This is what, maybe the third time that we've seen them kind of cowering in some degree. First in the locker room, what we gonna do? Then they come out and beg to get the title shot instead of the All-American girls, who I'm sure they look real stupid now for having given up the title shot and gained nothing out of it. There's a great line that Ravishing Rick Rude said in ECW, something to the effect of, it was stupid of Shane Douglas to accept this, but it was dumb of Taz to accept this, but it's downright stupid of Shane because he's got nothing to gain from it. Sorry I started that off wrong, but that's ultimately where it came down. It's like, it was bad on one part, but it's worse for this other one because you have absolutely nothing to gain. That's where the All-American girls were in this equation. It was questionable for the mother truckers to attempt that, but it was downright stupid for the All-American girls to give up their shot. However, if something comes of them having given up their shot, that would be interesting. I will take it. Moving on, back to this scene. So the truckers come out and they are begging to try and handle this debt that they've accrued. Like I said, it seems like this may take a turn at some point, given that at the beginning of the show, 10 grand was offered up for any information on who attacked, the Beast, which happens to be, somewhere about the amount that they have to pay, right? They went double or nothing off of 5 grand, even though it was 10 grand earlier than that. And then they reduced it to 5 and now it's back to 10. I don't know. Maybe I'm just off with my math. Maybe it's just me. So anyhow, they carry on, and Holly's still being somewhat defiant in the background. And the offer ultimately comes to this. The offer is given out that we will clean your house. The mother truckers are willing to clean the house because we ain't got that kind of money. This is why I say, you can't really apply logic in this universe, or certainly not real world logic. You're supposed to be these big wrestling stars, and you can't begin to pay this off. Never mind the fact that you have a second job as a truck driver and they get paid real good. Nothing. Between the two of you. Nothing. Yes, do not apply logic. Just skip past that. So, anyhow, of course, this is played up for comedy. Swag is like, hey, I can't go back to prison. I got too many priors. And, when before they were so defiant about going to prison and didn't care. Total change of heart from these two. I mean, it's amazing. They now do not want to go because the threat of prison came if Lana Star did not get what she was owed from their bet. Lana won. So this is where the offer comes. They want to, hey, we'll clean your house to work this off. So this is basically turned into an indentured servitude angle. The one thing that I really didn't understand, I get that there are going to be people that would not weigh this up against the previous angle that the truckers were in, because it's been a while ago. And it's really not relative to this. I want to say that. So I'm not saying it to toss anything else that I haven't tossed on this angle, but it's just, why do the truckers now suddenly have this fear of these things? And and, prison and be willing to work for this woman when it was absolutely defined out where they basically had a similar angle with Sophia Lopez like a year ago. They took her service, didn't pay for it, and then turned it back on them in the match and won. I mean, and Lopez didn't do another thing about it, just like rolled over and died. So as far as that angle was concerned. I mean, if it's there to make Lana Star look good and her team, then it's working fine. I would say it's working great. If it's there to make the truckers look good or heroic or sympathetic, I don't know what they're trying to get off of this, is basically what I'm saying. Like, are they supposed to be sympathetic here? All I get is that this is an excuse for them to do some lame comedy. Let's get the episode of the Beverly Hillbillies together using these two. And that's it. I have no other idea what they could possibly be gaining from this. And do they have to be doing an angle that provides something to gain? No. I mean, theoretically, they probably just like, hey, we just need content. I just assumed because it's two of their top teams that there was some destination in mind other than a punchline. But they may yet prove me wrong. It might not be a big punchline, might not be a big joke. Maybe it'll pay off in some big emotional match at the end of this thing. Who knows? So anyhow, David McClain, of course, gets himself involved. Well, he gets on the mic and starts talking with him too. McClain re-explains the situation to the crowd. That he's basically there for exposition on the mic to everybody else. I wrote down all they slow. Just like they're sitting there watching it just like the rest of us. Why did he need to get up and like, hey, so you're saying you're going to do this and that, they're going to work it off and let it. I was like, we just heard all that. You're just repeating stuff. So end of this, they are now servants to Lana, more or less. That is the kickoff for what this angle is doing. So we can move on from that and jump to the next segment. Because the end of that is the indentured servitude, and I'm sure once that begins, comedy will apply. So this segment now is heading into the main event, which is advertised as Jessie Jones versus The Beast. This is like the second week that they've advertised, I guess, something and flipped it. Last week got the tag titles. Hey, this is All-American Girls getting their shot, and then boom, we got Mother Truckers rematch. Here we got Jessie Jones versus The Beast again, and now The Beast doesn't show. This is how they start this off. And they begin it with rewriting history, saying that Jessie won by countout. Now, I do not recall a count ever being applied when The Beast came out and got hit in the head with the bottle. In fact, I think that all that happened before the bell rang, didn't it? I'm just going off of memory as I'm talking to you, so I don't know. But I really think that was all before the bell. And they certainly did not say that she won on TV. So this comes across to me like another one of those, let's just rewrite it because no one will notice things. So The Beast doesn't come out. The crowd chants, "Where's the Beast?" which I'm shocked about. Either she's gotten herself over there or there's somebody standing there telling them what to say. So I also wrote down, why would Jones get another title match anyway? I don't know why Dave McClain hadn't asked her, what do you know about this situation? But, what do I know? That's probably logic that does not need to be applied to that situation. Otherwise, the angle will fall apart. So Jessie Jones cuts a promo on the Beast. Dave McClain, talks to Jessie Jones about where she might be. It's like she might be on the highway. She might be on the 405 or, we don't know. Which does beg the question that if you didn't know that she was there, why would you schedule a main event featuring her? I know that there's been wrestling shows that have done that over the past decades where the main event person will arrive to the building while the show's in progress. But, that's WWE, and they can get away with that just because it's WWE. And they've been able to make people believe or at least accept the things that they do and say in their little universe. I don't know if WoW would be able to apply that kind of logic to everything. Perhaps in this situation, people will accept it. But the idea that their main event person who is coming to a well-advertised show wouldn't be there when the thing started to begin with just seems a little odd. Or that he's just making excuses. Or both. So he does this, I don't know where she might be, but, essentially defending the Beast. Then here comes Penelope Pink. I'll interrupt. This is, I put 3 of WoW's better promos. These are people that can get on the microphone and they can handle it, opposed to sound like they got a memorized script. And by 3, I mean Abilene, Maverick, Jessie Jones, and Penelope Pink. 4 if you want to include Lana. Abilene is just good in her annoyance. And I mean that in the nicest way that I can. She plays her over-the-top, self-indulged character voice to the hilt. And it serves its purpose. But, so Pink comes out. She's interrupted. And basically this turns into a argument over who's the number 1 contender. That's basically what this comes down to. It's the argument over who is the number 1 contender. Now, I'm not sure what their number 1 contenders scene is like, but it feels like it has been the same 3 people or so floating around the title for months. Meanwhile, while the Beast was defending the championship, somebody like the Classmaster would just have a random shot out of the clear blue. These people over here jumping through hoops to get the title. Yeah, Princess Ozzy, she's another one, jumping through hoops to get a title shot. Tormenta just had one gifted to her, almost just because. Hadn't won a single title match yet. I'm not even sure if her record in the WoW would constitute her getting a title shot anywhere. So, but yeah, that's why I say I don't understand the logic of it. Sometimes they just do some things. So they're carrying on about this, and ultimately Dave McClain changes the main event. He's like, oh, you want a title match and you want a title match and I need a main event. So how about Jessie Jones versus Penelope Pink? Now, keep in mind, Penelope Pink just won a number 1 contenders match. It's not like it was all that long ago. So now she's put into another number 1 contenders match. I don't know if it's just me that didn't make sense to. I mean, it's a case of, is he forcing her to take the match and she has no choice? Because they did complain and they yelled like, you can't do, they did that. But at the same time, I'm like, well, would he be able to force her to take this match? She already won the number one contendership? Can he just like, no, you can't have it unless it, I don't know why I'm asking that, because he's the boss. He can do whatever he wants. But theoretically, he shouldn't be able to just take away something that she just wanted to get. So, argument aside, they have the match. I don't know. Dave McClain sits back down, and I guess he invited Maverick to sit down with her. It's another person that just decided to go into the commentary booth because she was there. They have, due to this match, begun to play up tension in the camp of Jones and Maverick. So we have the angle, or turn this into Jones versus Penelope Pink, and it is a absolute heel versus heel match. Good stuff. I didn't have any doubt that between the two of them, the match would be good. I don't like saying that somebody has a match that didn't belong in. Well, I know I've said that a few times, and when I say that, I mean that I don't know if the crowd is invested enough to have appreciated the match the way that they should have. If that makes sense. I oftentimes get the idea that they just are watching television and they, enjoyed seeing the stuff happen, but not necessarily invested in the Jessie Jones and not necessarily invested in the Penelope Pink the way that they could be. And given Wild's shooting schedule, that probably makes it very difficult for the live audience to be invested in them like they should be. But having said that, both Pink and Jones did a good job of making it very clear what is happening here in the ring. So if there was ever a chance that a match could tell the story in the ring to where everybody in the crowd that's watching should understand exactly what's going on because of their mannerisms, because of what they're doing, because of, how they're working the match, this was that match. Starts off with the referee checking both of them. Both of them have an object. Both of them are being loud and obnoxious. Now, take away the promo. Promo gave you an idea what was going on anyhow. But I'm just saying, from bell to bell. Just on the basis of that in and of itself, you understood that these two people are perfectly willing to bend, stretch, break the rules in order to get, what they want. Neither one of them are really good people, and they would do whatever they have to do to shortchange the other. Even though they may not have a direct personal issue, they are now standing in the other one's way. So I actually enjoyed this. Even when they did the lockup, it's different. Just them being unwilling to break, unwilling to give up, pulling each other's tights to get them into the corner. Subtleties like that. It was good stuff. It would have been, this is why I say it would have been, it's a little bit better than what this audience deserves. Nothing against the audience, but that audience, that pro wrestling audience probably would have gotten a kick out of most of this. And probably would have understood it on just another level. That's all. Nothing against the TV audience, because again, I think Jones and Pink did a fine job explaining what was going on without having to verbally say it to this virgin audience, we'll call it. When they lock up with each other with the test of strength, they do the same deal. Give each other a kick in the, in the stomach because they're both trying to shortcut the other. Pink gets caught in a headlock. What does she do? Grabs the hair. Then you got Jones that basically almost everything that the one did, the other did some variation of it. Just to, again, try to get whatever advantage that they can get. And there were portions in here where it's just move and counter move. Pink grabs the hair earlier. Jones returns the favor. I am absolutely certain that the people that's out there that came to see a wrestling match, I feel like this made all the sense in the world. It wasn't any questions as to what their circumstances were, which is good. It was good that, you got this two people in there that could get the point across that I am dislikable. Despite the fact that, you should want to root for one or the other. But, they were so good at what they were doing. Because generally speaking, I don't care for matches where the audience cannot tell who you should root for. I'm not a huge fan of that. But I was taken with these two because of how it was done. It was a nice, crisp content. It felt like it was some dire straits in there from time to time, just in the expressions that Pink might have when she's being tortured, so to speak, by Jones, or Jones' look of being, tortured when Lana Star picks up and gets involved. And then that Jones was able to just kick her off. Almost no babyface does it, but she ain't a babyface, so she's willing to do things that the other people aren't. I think because Lana Star was there, she might have became the sympathetic heel, but she's still a heel. And the fact that Pink is a more arrogant projecting heel would probably help that as well. So, in any case, Abilene Maverick, we know it was at ringside. She went over to the commentating booth. We got that set up earlier. The match, and I very rarely, if ever, have said that you should go and watch it. Like, hey, if you haven't seen it yet, you should go find it and watch it. But I'm going to say this one. If you haven't seen it, you should find it and watch it. It's enjoyable. So again, Abilene Maverick, she's at ringside. Lana Star has already interfered. Jones is able to get her off, but she has already interfered. It does come down to a point where they are literally exchanging, pulling tights, pulling hair, raking eyes, kicking each other when the other one's not watching, things like that. It's just back and forth with that. Pulling the tights out of a roll up, just every cheap move that either feet on the ropes that the other one could do, they're doing. It comes down to Jones being able to catch Penelope Pink and lock her in a new submission, which is being called Southern Discomfort, as far as Nigel Zane says. But as she's in it and subsequently taps out, Lana Star's already up and she's got the referee's attention. So she's doing her heel manager thing despite the fact she's in there with a fellow heel. Then she gets back up on the apron. And now, it was a little less plausible that she needed to be back up on it. But, we're willing to let that slide. So she's distracting the referee at this point. There's a rear waist lock that Jones has as she pushes Pink towards the ropes. Maverick has already left the booth. She has Pink in the rear waist lock. Maverick swings the cane. Pink gets out of the way, nails Jones in the head. Jones goes down. Pink gets the pin. So she remains number one contender. And she immediately is giving faces to Abilene Maverick like, oh, you messed up over there, because it was Maverick that cost it. And I love that Pink's face says it. It's not even that I beat her, you beat her for me. And I thought that was really good. Great on the camera to have that nice close-up of her while she's doing it. So it's a crutch in the head for the win. And that was the other thing. It was a gimmick that I can believe in. I can believe that if you swung a crutch hard enough and cracked it over somebody's head, you might put them down for 3 seconds. You can believe that, opposed to the mirrors. You remember the mirrors that used to be the staple of the Lana Star factions, because she's had other ones before this. But that mirror, that was so ridiculous. Like, how is this thing knocking anybody out? I can understand being cut, but how is this little toy mirror knocking somebody out? The crutch works. And it makes sense. And it didn't have to be gimmicked up. It would look just like a normal thing. Perfect. So it was a believable thing to use for the knockout. This was a good story, bell to bell. Like I said, yes, they did have set up ahead of that. But I'm just saying, if you watch it from bell to bell without any promos before it, you understand what's going on there. And I thought it was well worth the watch to see that match. The overall episode, how would I say it? The main event raises it. And actually, I won't even say that, because if you remove the things around the matches, I can't say it enough. If you remove the things around the matches in most of these cases, the show was pretty good. Siren and Chainsaw. I enjoyed Chainsaw in that. As I said earlier, she felt like she was back to being the monster. I get hit. I might get hurt a little bit. Now I'm annoyed. Now I fight back. Just those little things. Americana did a little better here. I hope that it continues. I hope that she doesn't lean back into that Levi thing. But I hope it continues. I hope she keeps going, and maybe she'll learn to emote a little better. But the match, fine. Herself, fine. Enjoy the tag match. Genesis and Fierce. I said it earlier. Commentary dragged it a little bit, but the match in of itself, fine. You just heard what I thought about this one. It was very enjoyable, just in that the personalities and body language and presentation bled through. And that helps that match, in my opinion. Two pros that were able to do what they are trained to do. Make people enjoy the work that's going on bell to bell, and not have to hide under a gimmick or 2-minute match to show that you don't know anything. Anyhow, that was the entirety of the show. So the grand sum here is that we got a bounty or reward that is being put out for any information, because this is his last resort apparently to find out what happened. I gave a list of things that could have been done, but maybe a private investigator, who knows. Just giving a reward of a large sum of money, that'll find the truth. So we got that angle happening, which could coincide with the Mother Truckers angle, because it's roughly about the same amount of money that they need. And their angle now is that they are the reluctant servants to Lana Star, which I'm sure comedy will now ensue. We have the championship situation with Pink still vying for another shot. I guess this is the 4th or 5th. I don't know. I lost track. And Jessie Jones now this season, and I guess half of last season, now suddenly cares about getting a title match. So that seems to be the summary. Hopefully, the next episode will lay it out a little better so I can get a good feel for where the Jones thing is going and the bottle and all that stuff like that. It would help to really understand whether this is going to sink or swim. So the match was fairly good. This episode is mostly cohesive. That was the pro. The con, the commentary took tension away from what should have been a competitive match. And I mentioned this sometime earlier, the camera shots sometimes miss important moments. But that's a production issue. Less on them. So thumbs up, ladies, on this particular episode. I think it came together fairly well. I know I've said a lot of things in there that I didn't like, but the overall sum of things, that episode came together fairly well. And that is going to be it. Normally at this point I would give the preview. But because I'm recording this somewhat out of sequence and I know that this will go up out of sequence, probably would have seen what I haven't seen yet by the time that this is uploaded. So yeah, I'm not going to go through that right now. I'll try to pick that up once the schedule moves its ways back into some sort of normalcy. So, that being said, thank you all for tuning in to this episode. I appreciate your time and your efforts to do all the things that help this thing grow. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Subscribe or leave a review on those platforms where you listen to this in podcast format. We are available on greater podcast platforms everywhere. If you have not found those things that way, easy way to go, WPNWrestling.com. That is the focal point of everything that goes down with the podcast and the 24/7 stream. All day, every day. Matches dating back to 2013. And I appreciate those who have entertained the ads or contacted them over something that you may have seen there. It's helped out a lot. Thank you. And on that note, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.